Hey there, welcome to Be Unmessable with the podcast. I am your host, Jocelyn Herman-Saccio, and today we have an interesting guest. Her name is Danielle Pashko. Danielle is a holistic nutritionist and she's a health coach with more than 2 decades of experience, and she's also authored 2 books about wellness. She herself overcame 2 health challenges. One was thyroid cancer, she beat it, and we'll hear more about that, and also chronic Lyme disease and long COVID, which a lot of people are dealing with. And she was able to recover from all of that. And her health challenges, her personal health challenges, have given her the skills of empathy and intuition when she helps others. She's everywhere. She's on ABC, CBS, USA Today, and now she's on the Be Unmessable with podcast. So welcome, Danielle
Thank
Pashko.
you. I'm so happy to be doing this with you. This is awesome.
Isn't this great? It's so
Yeah,
nice to
it really
see
is.
you and know that you're doing so well and happy. And we're going to hear all about it. So tell people about your journey and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Well, the journey started a long time ago. I've always had an interest in wellness. I know it's super popular now, but unfortunately, when I was a little girl, I had a very sick mom that had cancer since the time I was 8 years old. And she went the holistic route using a macrobiotic diet, using homeopathic remedies, doing visualization, meditation. And she taught me these things as a little girl. And unfortunately, by the time she was diagnosed and the cancer had spread, she didn't make it. And she passed away when I was 13. But she left me her books, and it was one really stuck out to me was Love, Medicine, and Miracles from Dr. Bernie Siegel, and all of these things that are so common now using mindfulness. And I always said, I really want to help people who are going through a similar journey and work in the field of health and wellness. So I became first I was doing healing work. I studied with a shaman when I was 18, and I ended up doing hands-on healing, and then became a massage therapist, and then a yoga instructor, and then got my degree in nutrition. And
Oh my
I was
God, I
like,
forgot about that chapter of your life, but
yeah, it was
now it's
like
all coming back to me.
all of that stuff. And I thought I was invincible and I could just beat anything because here I am eating super healthy, my vegan diet, my perfect. And then the first challenge I got was a thyroid cancer when I was 30. And it just started changing the way I practiced because, even though I had the empathy from my mother, I think experiencing my own stuff, I worked in a clinic, then we had people coming in all the time with more serious issues. And I knew like clinically maybe how to help them, but sometimes you don't know things until you really go through it.
Yeah.
And so it just changed the way I practiced and related to the people I've worked with. And it's been a journey, and it didn't stop there. I had the thyroid cancer, and I overcame that. I was feeling great. I wrote a book about it called "Smile at Your Challenges," and I was like, okay, all this karma I had in my life, I kind of I could finish it at an early age. And then 7 years later, I ended up getting bit by a tick I didn't know, and I was feeling really bad. I thought I had a relapse of the thyroid cancer, and turns out that it was Lyme disease, but if you wait too long, it can become chronic. So
Mhm.
that was a journey. Thank God I worked in a clinic and I was around the right people, and they really helped me a lot, and I had to go back to my toolbox and use a lot of the things I did in the past. And I got through that, and I was thrilled. And when COVID actually hit, I was feeling really well. I was living in an apartment on the 10th floor, and I would run my stairs out of boredom or walk from Manhattan to Queens out of boredom. And I was really strong at the time. And then I thought, if I get COVID, I'll be fine. I wasn't that worried. Got COVID, and it was like Lyme on steroids. And
Mm.
a lot of people have heard of long COVID, and it happened to me. And I went through that whole thing all over again. And I'm so grateful that I pulled out of that. But it was not an easy road. None of this was an easy road. I'm gonna be honest.
No, I mean, when I talk about being unmessable with, sometimes people think, oh, it's being tough or not feeling your feelings, but that's not what it is at all. It's
Yeah.
about how do you rise above the circumstances when you're dealing with things that life is throwing at you, like things like that, whether it's your own health or family members' health or things in the economy or whatever you're dealing with in your career. How do you be somebody who can create and fulfill on your vision even in the face of those kind of circumstances. That's why I wanted you on the show, because you have demonstrated being unmessable with in so many different instances, not just those. I mean, I know you have examples in your life where something could have taken you out for the count, any one of those three, but
Yeah.
something could have kept you down and just given up, but you transcended it. You brought something to bear that brought you to the other side of that.
Yeah, I really feel very grateful for that. A lot of people they are into these meditation or doing all these things, and anyone can meditate out in a forest and feel spiritual. But really, it's like, what do you do on Earth on this plane when things happen to you, and you know better than anybody? It's like, what do you do when you're in the face of adversity? How do you conquer that? And that's really where the true inner strength comes. It's when you're actually going through it. So, yeah, it's something that constantly work on, like anything else, like going to the gym or being regimented with that. It's really training your mind to deal with all these things that pop up, because the bigger the person you are and the more you're into personal growth, the more you're going to get smacked with challenges. It is like universal. It's like no one has a free pass in this world. So you may look at people and think like their life is great on social media and look how lucky they are, and it's like everyone's got something. Everyone's like, you know,
Everybody gets messed with
yeah,
with whatever, and sometimes it gets higher and higher because you develop the muscle to deal with one level of messable with moments, and then the next level comes, and then the next level. And they say
absolutely.
that saying, oh, whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger. But
Yeah.
in a way, it is sort of the opportunity, either step up and develop yourself or not. And what is it that you relied on in some of those moments where you could have just, been in that world of survival and reaction and no power, but you were able to transcend it? What did you use or draw upon?
For me, it's always been faith. And I don't think you necessarily have to be a religious person. You could think about the universe or karma, but I really believe our purpose in this world. I believe we come down here and we really do have a mission to fulfill. That's my belief. You don't have to, no one has to believe it.
No,
But I think that we all have a purpose. And the I always say, big souls have big challenges. And it's kind of like, you think you have it all figured out, and sometimes you can't get too cocky, and because you will be humbled.
that's
And
for
that's
sure.
and that is kind of in the thing. Like I really do believe that things happen for a reason, and I really feel like I'm in the right space, and I want to help people and I want to understand them. And I don't think any of this is by accident. Sometimes I say, please, like, if something's going to happen again, like, please tap me on the shoulder. Don't, like, punch me out. Like,
Blindside you.
I don't want to go through this again, but I feel like use your gifts for the good, and if you've been through enough things, like, you have to use them. And I guess that's what's kept me going, as I just feel I have an unshakable faith. I really, really
Mhm.
do. And I think that people who overcome things really believe in, their whether it's a higher power or destiny or anything like that. And people who live in this consciousness, better than anyone, living in the past and just complaining and crying and staying stuck. They can't, it's like this loop that goes on and on and on, and they're never going to get out of it. And you really just have to see yourself in your future you. And I learned quite a few skills from you. I don't know if that helped me along the way when I did landmark. I have to tell
Really?
you.
What'd you learn?
Yeah. So when my mother passed away, I don't even know if I ever told you this, Jocelyn, but my mother passed away. My parents were divorced, and I had no relationship with my father or his side of the family. I was on my own at like 15, 16 years old, and I didn't want to talk to any of my dad's family because I felt very abandoned by them. And my paternal grandfather died on my father's side of the family. So here I am, not talking to anyone in my family, holding anger and resentment. But now it's later on in life. I'm in my early 20s, and I just did landmark. And you said you have something about forgiveness, calling people up and like forgiving them. It was an assignment
Yeah,
to
it's, well, what I typically say about resentment or not forgiving people is it's the poison you eat hoping they die.
right. And I was holding a lot of anger at my family. And I had heard through one of my relatives that I still talk to on my father's side that my grandfather, who I no longer spoke to, had passed. And he was being buried in Florida, and I was in New York. And I mean, do I want to go to the funeral? I was asked. I had not spoken to my father, any of my aunts and uncles, all these relatives, and I show up like the black sheep. I have not spoken to anyone, and I go. And afterwards, since I'm Jewish, we sit shiva, which is you
Hmm.
sit afterwards when someone passes, and you sit around for 7 days, and you spend
Eat.
time and talk about the person. So I'm sitting in this apartment, which is my grandparents' apartment. My grandmother had already passed. Now my grandfather passed. And I'm with all these relatives who are like, I haven't spoken to in years. And I was so angry with. And I asked them, each one of them, if they would come into my grandfather's room and I could talk to them. And I remember saying to each one of them, I know that what happened with us, I know it wasn't because you hated me or because there was anger. It's just you did the best you could, and I'm not mad at you. And I want to have I it wasn't really it wasn't like I forgive you, because I don't want to sound like that, but it was more like we're okay. Like I want to have peace with you. And I didn't maintain a relationship with anybody, but I just went back home to New York with like not having bad blood. I felt like
That's
I said my piece and I hugged everybody. And that was kind of the last I spoke to them, but I felt like it was freeing because it really was something that was very I was holding on to a lot of resentment, but
yeah.
that came out of that came out of doing Landmark.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
great. That's
Mhm.
beautiful. When people resent or hold grudges or whatever it is, that hate takes space up in your heart, and then your heart's
Yeah,
not free to love freely anybody,
totally.
including
Totally.
yourself. And it's a big thing because, I know that's something that messes with people a lot, and the work that I do with people is blaming people,
Right.
or holding resentment towards other people or yourself. And when you can let that go, like release that, there is a whole new space for you to be able to create whatever you want. So I'm thrilled that that happened for you out of
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
that work.
It really was helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. God, it's been that long since we've known each other. It's kind of crazy when I think
I
about it. It's a
know.
lifetime ago. We were just,
I
for
know.
those
I
of
met
you
you when I was
listening,
like
we,
20. I don't even know, early 20s. It was a
my
long time ago.
21-year-old son, when I was pregnant with my 18-year-old, Danny took him to school in the morning when he was in preschool at 3 or 4 years old.
I
So it's been
remember. I
quite a
remember, like, it
while.
doesn't even feel like that's long ago. It's so crazy.
Well, you look the same. So I want to find out more about what
You
you
look
do with
great
people
too.
health-wise, though. So what are some things people could do to, you know, take control, not control of their health, but impact or elevate or optimize their health and well-being? Because I know that you work in that area.
Yeah, I think it's important to have rituals, and meaning one from the time you get up in the morning to, you can't always be perfect in the middle of the day because things happen, but you have control over your mornings and also your evenings, you have some control over. So those are the times to really implement your rituals, whether that's getting up. And for me, I have my list of how I say my prayers and I do my gratitude thing, and that's that. And then I go outside and I get some sunlight. And it's really good to get some sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning because that actually helps set your circadian rhythms and helps you to sleep better as well. And it raises your core body temperature. So you actually have a little more energy in the morning. So I do that, and I do some Tai Chi or Qigong outside. And then I come back in, I eat something. I try to have a healthy breakfast. I do have a healthy breakfast every morning. Some people fast. I know that's popular. Take my supplements. And then I start off, going into my work. But I do all that stuff even before I start my day. So I really recommend to people, don't just get up first thing in the morning, just setting your alarm, just enough time to start your morning. You're drinking your coffee, you're running out frantic, you're not grounded. It's good to have things to settle your mind and get you clear, and then you can do your work or whatever you need to do so you can approach people in a more calm way and be more productive. So that's something
I,
isn't
I
right.
totally concur with that. And, one of the things I coach people in when I'm working with them is to create an unmessable with morning, to have three
Oh, okay.
practices,
Yeah.
three things that you do every morning and not have it be the first thing you do is check your phone, because that is so first of all, people do it in the middle of the night, and it's like just your brain just never stops. So
Right.
buy an alarm clock so you don't have your phone as your alarm clock, so that your
Smart.
phone is in
Yep.
another room. Wake up, I do 6 minutes of meditation in the morning just to
Right.
start, just to like do that, and drink water before I have coffee.
Yes.
Although I do drink a lot of coffee, that's for sure. And then if I don't go outside, I do something physical inside. uh,
Good.
but outside is my preference for sure.
Right. I mean, when it's cold, it's hard. Right. I'm in Florida at the moment, but when I'm in Manhattan and it's freezing and I live by the water on the west side,
Yes, me
so
too.
it's like you walk out in the morning and the wind like is so strong, it like blows you away. So yeah, it's hard to get outside, but
Although I'll still take a rainy, cold day and be outside. Like if I carve the time,
yeah.
if it works, I'd rather be outside in horrible weather than not outside all day. Because once I start my day, I'm
Oh,
in
for
front of a
sure.
Zoom screen all day long.
For
So
sure.
the other thing I tell people to do, you tell me what your thought is on this, is to schedule recharge time during the day, because even most of us just go back to back to back. So I have people schedule 20 minutes of recharge, even if that recharge is having a cup of tea or getting up from their desk and doing some jumping jacks for 5 minutes or whatever it is, something that's going to disconnect you from work mode. What do you
Definitely.
feel about that? What is that? How does that impact?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. There's some qigong exercises I do with breathing that I will get up and do that, or go outside. I think that's really really important. I mean, it's just so bad for our health even just to not be
Yes,
outside at all, but just to, I mean, all this stuff with the screens, we have to break that. So that's the one thing. It's great that we can work remotely, but it really does mess us up and it's not natural. So you have to recharge. You have to just give yourself the time to be able to do that. So I'm 100% in alignment with you on that. I
and
even,
I
and if you can't get outside, the other thing, I mean, you should, but I
yeah,
also have a full body red light that I've been using for the past 2 years in my house, which the red light is really good. It's not that it's not saying it's a
a
replacement for going
substitute.
outside,
Yeah,
but it's just good just to re-energize. So sometimes I'll sit in front of that and I do my breathing. If I can't, I get outside. But if you can't, I mean, now that I have a
a little
little
puppy.
five, yeah,
Ah.
you got to take them out a bunch of times. So
Yeah, you've got built in going out. And that is something that obviously the circumstance called having a dog makes you go outside. But even if you don't have a dog, what I always find is the biggest thing that messes with people is not designing their day, but just reacting to what's happening, reacting to the emails, reacting to the meetings. That's what being messable it looks like, is being in reaction mode all day long. So if you can at least author time to go outside, or time to, sit and watch the news. I mean, I know that's not very encouraging right now, but
yeah, yeah.
whatever it takes, watch Royal Pains or whatever recharges you, listen to music, do a quick little, 5-10 minutes of yoga, whatever it is. It just alters your brain patterns enough to impact your energy levels and your focus levels, because after a certain amount of time your brain doesn't function optimally. And when you spend 20 to 30 minutes of physical movement, your brain recharges and can
Oh,
optimize.
definitely. And also with all these screens and all the radiation. First of all, these are not even real glasses. These are blue light glasses, but I have like I wear gaming glasses after a few hours. Like if I know the people when I do a Zoom session with them, they're orange. I look like a character in a Marvel movie, but I don't care because like it just helps you from all the stuff I have.
Well, I should get some. If they're orange, they'll go with
Yeah,
everything I own
yeah.
practically.
I have
I'll have to.
shields. I have EMF, electromagnetic frequency shields blocking all my screens. So I have that going on. And I even have a cap that I wear that when I'm just doing a lot of emails, that helps with all the Wi Fi that's coming from your phones and electronics, just to help to mitigate some of the stuff
There's
that goes
so
on.
many tech solutions to hack all this craziness that we're all
Mhm.
dealing with. But even if you don't do tech, I mean, going outside is something you can do with spending no money.
Outside, that's
Breathing is something you can do doesn't cost anything,
Just
and
take
you
your kids
just
outside. If you have kids, it's so important. They're so glued to their computer screens and using everything. And it's like they're not going out, and all their friendships are like, let's chat each other up on Instagram. Not good. It's just like the way we grew up is it was so much healthier.
yeah, back in the day back in the day, in the old days, let me tell you, sweetheart, we didn't have phones. We walked 2 miles uphill, no shoes, both ways to school,
Seriously.
Um,
But it was
and
good
is there,
for us.
it was much better for us than, this kind of sedentary lifetime. And even, since COVID, it's gotten even more sedentary, I think, because there's so much permission to do things on Zoom or from home, which is great, as you and I have discussed, but there's a catch to it, that you have to really be consciously designing your well-being, because life
Right.
is not going to design your well-being for you.
Absolutely not. And I say, if you have the opportunity to meet do a meeting in person, or meet a friend in person, or go to a class, get out. Like, don't do everything on virtually just because it's available to you. It's good to go in person if you can. Just those interactions, switching things up. It's just, community is like one of the pillars of good health. It's happiness. It's not just eating well. You can have the best diet in the world and take all the supplements and do everything perfect, but if you're like not happy and you don't have good community and friendships, it's like you can still be in a pretty sucky place.
Totally. Yeah. Community is such a key part of any success I've ever had. In addition to having a great coach in that area, I've had community that
Yeah,
held me to account, that supported me, that encouraged me when I was sort of like, I don't know if this is going to work. They get up underneath you. It's so critical. And again, has to be designed, because so much of our day-to-day life now is not connected. It seems like we're connected because we
right.
can, call anywhere and reach anywhere, but it's really like fostering disconnection. So how do you create connection? I think that would be a really good muscle for everybody to take on building, and create at least one social in-person thing every week, so that you could be having those kind of endorphins and the hormones that get produced, and everything that gets produced when you're in person is very different than in front of a
Absolutely.
screen.
No, it really makes such a difference. I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah, and is there anything people could do like today with regard to their food? Because I know you've written like even a book about, food. And so what is something people could do that would impact in a positive way their eating, without like too much having to research and get tests and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing is most people at this point know that processed foods are no good. Sugar is not good for you. All of that stuff, we know that. If you're having meat, it's good to do it grass fed. I know it's more expensive, but it really does make a difference. Your vegetables, you want to have them organic if you can, because they're sprayed with so much crap that you go over when you're in Europe, you
Oh,
probably feel really well because it's the difference of the quality of the food, all the things that the foods are sprayed with here in the United States. It's banned
it's
over in
everything tastes better in
everything
Europe when
tastes
I'm
better, it's fresher,
uh,
it's better
and it's
quality. So
cheaper.
yeah, it's cheaper. So try to get things that are seasonal. I think that's also important too. If you can go to a local's farmer's market, you know that what you're having is more seasonal. If price is an issue, which it should be for everyone, because everything's so expensive.
It's
Places like Trader
crazy.
Joe's are great. The quality of the food is really good there if you can't go to a farmer's market. And try to cook as much as you can. I know it's like easier just to order in or have something that's just kind of pre-made or whatever, but cooking is the best thing to do. And that's why an air fryer is like, I think, one of the best inventions ever, because it's so easy to cook your food and make it healthy and not put a lot of crap in it, and it still tastes really good. So
Oh,
if
that's good.
I'm always making wild fish, or grass-fed chicken, or whatever it is, but it's just like healthy.
And I think cooking, people lose out on because it is so easy to just order in or order
Yeah.
those pre-made meals or whatever it is. But the therapeutic aspect of cooking, like the social aspect of it, when my husband and I are in Europe, we'll go get the food at the market outside, and then we'll come back and cook together, and I'll have a glass of wine while he's cooking for me, and we're playing music. I mean, it's like a thing, it doesn't have to just be like, let me cook in order to eat.
Right. No, it's such a great thing. I remember used to have these Sunday night dinner parties, I remember, like,
That's right.
and it's great. It is a really good thing to cook, and it's a very good skill, and it's just something that, being in especially Manhattan, a lot of people don't want to cook because their kitchens are small. But that's why I was saying, like, maybe if you have a big kitchen somewhere else, but if you don't, you can do things like air fry, or to make it a little more accessible. But if you can, it's really the best way
Yeah,
to
and
go,
that's
and the
something.
most cost effective. I mean, to
It
order,
is cheaper.
oh my God, to order in is so, I don't know what happened with the price of food, but it's just insane. And if you're feeding more than one person, it's just like, it's like, I feel like it's doubled in the
Yeah,
past 3 years.
I think it has. I mean, I remember I went to one of my favorite restaurants, and I hadn't been there since before COVID,
Yeah,
and literally my favorite dish was twice as much money.
I believe it. It's just unbelievable how pricey everything is.
I went to the diner across the street, and, like an omelet is like $25. I was like, this is insane. I'm not going to spend
Right,
$25
and
on
they're
an
not
omelet.
organic eggs for 25. Think about how,
$25 you could buy enough eggs for a month. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, and I said to the owner, I said, I love your diner, your coffee's great, but I can't afford to eat here. It's just crazy. He goes, I know, it's horrible. Ever since COVID, the prices have just gone up and they haven't come
Yeah,
down, and we have to pass it along. So hopefully that'll start coming down, because, there is no reason for it to cost what it costs right now. I think
I
people just
know.
haven't made enough of a stink or something,
Yeah.
you know. Now, is there anything I can support you with? As you know, I, coach people. That's what I do. High performance people who want to move to the next space in their life. Is there anything that you could use some support with?
There is. So there's a few goals of mine that took a while to meet, and the books definitely were that. And now that's like 8 9 years ago. But
It's
the,
crazy.
the speaking, I want to do more speaking, and the thing that I really have a goal of, and I was telling you about, I want to do a TED Talk, and I've had some fear around that because it's just, listen, it's intimidating. So I interviews I'm very comfortable with, but it's being in these, groups like that, I
Yeah.
have felt a little bit nervous. So you have encouraged me to go forward with this, and that's something that I really want to do. So
So tell
that's
me
that's
what's
on my
the
list right now.
so let's look at what the concern is, because you're so articulate and beautiful and smart, and
Thank
you have
you.
the information. It's not like you don't know what you're talking about. So what is the consideration or the fear?
That's a good question. Like, I guess when you think about speaking, or maybe freezing, or maybe, I don't know. That's never happened to me before. I've given enough lectures that I
Yeah,
haven't frozen.
exactly.
But it's something about the idea of a TED Talk. It just seems like, to me, like the ultimate speaking engagement. That just seems, I mean, Landmark too is a very big, you're speaking in front of a huge audience. But yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just, it's something that I've had a fear of. And
Well, if we can isolate it and identify it, we might be able to dismantle it. So imagine there you are on whatever stage, because, they're all different kinds of stages,
Mhm.
and there's people in the audience. That's what that is there's a stage, a slide deck, and people.
Right. That's probably it. Anytime I've ever done a lecture, I never work from notes. I don't use a PowerPoint. I like to speak from the heart. I like it to be more authentic. So I just kind of talk. And I'm like, when I do this TED thing, am I going to have these slides and use the clicker and the technology and look at it and get disoriented? I don't know. It's just
Well,
not.
I'm going to tell you something really funny, because I did a TED Talk, years ago, and they had invited me to do the TED Talk for 5 years, and I said no. Every time they invited
Why?
me, I said no, because of the PowerPoint.
Are you
Had this. I
serious?
am totally serious. I was like, I can't do it. I don't understand PowerPoint. I've never done a PowerPoint. I don't want to have to click things, and like I sounded just like you, right?
That's the whole
And
reason. It's not even the talking, it's the whole stupid clicking
it's
thing.
exactly that's exactly what was stopping me. So, and I was telling somebody, I was in Florida actually, telling a friend of mine who does PowerPoint decks for a living, and she's like, "Oh, I'll make the PowerPoint for you." I was like, "What?"
Oh,
She was like, "Yeah, no, I'll just make it for you. It's no problem. And then you just practice it. We'll just practice it on Zoom." And I was like, "You mean I don't have to make, cuz I'm not like a artist. I don't know how to make a slide. I'm like,
right, right.
and literally the obstacle disappeared, and I said yes, and I ended up doing that TED Talk, and now like 80,000 people have seen that TED Talk at this point, and I
Oh,
have used
wow.
it in countless circumstances. And now I do talks with slides all the time. It's not even an issue. But the thing that often stops people is they don't know how to do something, right? So when you aren't sure how to do something, this is the question I would substitute for it. This is the coaching, is who can do it? If you don't know how, ask who, because you know somebody who could put it together.
I do. I mean, I'm sure I do. But then did that friend come and click for you, or you just did?
No, the clicking was easy. And this is what I did, because I don't like to use, outlines or anything either. I just like to talk to people. I
Right.
used the slides as my outline.
Oh,
So I
right.
would just, click, okay, what's your dream? That's the slide. What's your dream? So now I'm going to talk to somebody about what their dream is, which is natural for me because that's what I do with people, right? Then what messes with you? It's just like literally the prompts for what you
Right.
are going to say anyway.
That makes sense. That definitely makes, okay. That's actually a really good idea. And now I'm thinking in my head, I actually might have the right person to do this. So that is pretty much the obstacle for me, is a
Amazing
technology.
how when we don't know how to do something, we get stopped rather than asking, well, who does know how? Same thing with social media. A lot of people get stopped with social media. They're like, well, I don't know how to do lives. I don't want to do this. I don't wanna-" But somebody knows. So, all you have to do is ask and people will show up to support you.
That is true, and it's amazing how many people really, and it's not always your good friends. You think that your friends are gonna show up for you. It's like-minded people who are really trying to be proactive in the world, who are very supportive. Like, some of my biggest supporters have been people I'm not even very close with, but they're just like they're those kind of people, and then it'll be reciprocated,
Yeah.
and it's pretty wild.
It is. It's
Yeah.
wild. And if you run into any problems, which I know you won't, because you're going to put one post on Facebook and you're going to have 10 people wanting to help you with your PowerPoint. But if you do run into, you call me, because the little kid you walk to school is an artist and he does all that stuff. He's
Oh
studying
my
at
gosh.
animation at SVA. So he could do a PowerPoint deck in his sleep.
That is okay. I'm gonna take you up on that.
Okay. So there you go. Game on. So now we want to, there's definitely, that's one thing, right? So that was stopping you from maybe taking all the actions you
Yeah.
need to schedule it and get it booked. But now the next thing is to get it booked, because if you get the deck and you practice a little bit on Zoom, it's really, you're going to see it's nothing. It's really so simple. Once you do it 2 or 3 times, you will not be concerned about clicking slides anymore. Um,
How many people were in your audience?
a few hundred, but I've
Oh, so you did a major one because there's like TED Talk. Sometimes you can be in like upstate New York somewhere and have 40 people in your
yeah.
audience, or you can do like a major one that there's hundreds of people.
Totally. You can do, and I've spoken in front of small groups and I've spoken in front of thousands of people. And,
You have.
but it's still people. So the other piece, if are you nervous about speaking in front of lots of people? Is that another consideration?
It's funny if I'm on a Zoom and I'm giving a lecture and I know that there's like over 1,000 people listening, it doesn't scare me so much. But when I'm on a stage, yeah, it does something to
Okay, so
me.
I have coaching for that too, because I've been doing that for 35 years. And as a
Yeah,
pop singer, I mean, I sang in front of 100,000 people,
that's
at
right.
once
Yeah.
in live actual, not on Zoom land, but in actual real people land. So what you need to remember is it's only one person at a time you're talking to. You can't talk to a group. It's not a real thing. You can
Okay.
only talk to, like, I can only talk to you right now. And if there were 15 other people on this screen, I'd be talking to Bob, or I'd be talking to, Susan, or I'd be talking. You can only look at one person at a time. So if
Right.
when you're speaking in front of people, you speak to one person at a time, you'll be fine. If you're speaking to the group, it's a concept, and then you get afraid because you're not afraid to talk to a person. You're afraid to talk to a
That
group.
is true. I would say that's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's different when you're talking to a group for
Yeah,
sure.
but a group is not real. There's no such thing as a group. There's just people. So if you're there with clearly your vision in mind, like, my intention is to make a difference for this person, and now this person, and this person, then your attention is all on them versus
Hmm.
how am I doing? Do I sound stupid? You know, Do I have
We all think
lipstick
that
on
for
our
a
teeth?
second.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
all your
Yeah.
attention, have it shifted to the person, one person at a time, and the difference that you're out to make with that person. And then it just, you disappear. So all that nervousness just sort of, and you might have heartbeats and you might have, like a little bit of shortness of breath. I sometimes get that when I speak in front of people, but it doesn't mean anything because you're there to make a difference with the people, not there to do good.
Right. That is true. That is true. And most of my friends who are speakers always talk about they still get nervous to this day, even if they speak all the time, or performers or whatever they do. It's like you get those butterflies, even if it's second nature to you, it still happens, and that's
It's
okay.
totally fine. It's just, are you going to hang out there and be stopped by it? Which I'm going to accuse you of being stopped by those fears
You
and
know, I have
considerations.
been. I didn't just come up with this thought like when I told you about it. It's been running in my mind doing a talk for like a year or two,
And it's no
and just
problem to have those kind of fears and stuff. It's just when you're messable with, those fears are bigger than your commitment. When you're unmessable with, your commitment, your vision is bigger than the fear. The fear doesn't go away. You bring it with you. That's why it takes courage. So if you create being
right. Because if we
courageous,
all fall for our fears, where are we gonna?
exactly. So you have everything you need and you have a message worth telling. So it's like you not doing it is sort of ripping people off.
Thank you. No, I really feel a need to be able to speak and communicate, and it's like it's a huge goal, and I don't think fear should stop any of us, and I completely agree with you on that. So it's
So by when are you going to get this booked?
yeah, I just that's another thing. I need to find out where all the talks are.
You
I
can
know
do
I
that
have
after
friends
you
who
make a
have.
promise. Come up with a date and then we'll backwards plan you finding out where the talks are. And that's a Google search. But by what date do you want to have it booked?
Hmm, by the end of this
Good.
year.
So by the end of the year, it is going to be on the books. And now you have a bunch of actions that you need to take. But if you
Thank
didn't say
you.
by the end of the year, it would be a someday dream. And someday's not a real day.
That is very true. That is very true. And that's what stops everyone. We all have good ideas. We don't act on them and someone else does it first. And that's happened so many times with businesses I wanted to do. And I like could have kicked myself. I was like, how did I not, I had this idea and someone else did it first. So it's not that anyone else is going to share the same message, but it's like we just waste our
Well,
time.
we
And it's
live in
like,
an
what.
imaginary illusion called someday. It's just like me moving to Paris. I was like, someday I'll live in Paris. Someday I'll live in Paris. And then finally, like a year and change ago, I was like, oh, there is no someday. I keep telling people that, but I have a someday dream. So that was it. I said, okay, what actions do I need to take? Same thing with you. So we set the date. We were like, May 1st, we're moving. That was it. And we did. So now you've got end of the year, it's booked. So now we got a backwards plan, and that's work, that you can just lay it out. Okay, by what date would I have to have sent in applications? When do I have to practice this talk? Because you should do a little demo on Zoom with whatever slides you end up with so that you have a piece of the talk for people to submit, you know,
That makes sense.
like yeah,
Okay. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do
the
it.
game is on now and keep me posted.
Okay.
And
Most
especially if you get
definitely.
stopped, then great.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate
No,
that
it's
because
my
that's gonna be
pleasure.
very helpful.
My job is to have people fulfill their dreams. So if anybody's stopped in fulfilling a dream, that's where Mighty Mouse is on her way, you know? Yeah.
Great.
So what would you like to, leave people with in terms of where they can find you if they want to work with you, if they want to find out more about your books or your programs?
Sure. Well, my website is a good place. It's my last name's Pashko, and it's pashkowellness.com, Pashko wellness.com. And then all my social handles are at Pashko Wellness, like Instagram.
And
And
we'll put all that in the show notes so people can
thank
easily
you.
click on you.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so
I'm
much.
excited now. You've left me
Good.
with some, yeah, I appreciate it.
Are you kidding? That's my honor. That's great. Thanks for being open and,
That's your
and
gift to this
coachable.
world.
You
Yes.
know, well, I'm thrilled that you were here, and we'll have to do like a follow up at some point to see once you get it booked. We'll get the skinny on what it took.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Everyone who's on your show is going to fulfill their amazing dream. I'm so excited about
This
this. Oh
is
my
my
God.
intent. That's why I'm doing it. I figure let me yeah, because I don't have to do a podcast. I'm busy. I have enough stuff to do.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, how can I get my message out there even more and incorporate other people's messages so that we can, get bank shots in terms of value with people. And this was what my coach told me to do. So I am coachable too.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you so
Great.
much for being on the show, Danielle, and I look
Thank
forward to the
you.
update on your TED Talk journey.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So thank you.
Great. And everybody else, we'll see you on the next episode of the Be Unmessable with podcast. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Be Unmessable with the podcast. I never take for granted that you've chosen to spend some time with me, and I am committed that you get value every time you do. So if you want to develop your unmessable with muscle to create life versus react to it, click below in the show notes and we will get you into our free promise game process that will enable you to start creating what you want versus waiting for what you want. I look forward to hearing back from you on what you're creating, as well as future topics for the show that might support you in being unmessable with. See you next time.